It's impossible not to compare Metaphor ReFantazio to Persona. With Atlas at the helm, there's a clear influence, especially in its gameplay structure and visual style. However, Metaphor carves out its own identity, trading the modern urban settings of Persona for a rich fantasy world while still retaining much of what makes the Persona series so captivating. At times, I'm also reminded of Fire Emblem, likely due to the medieval high fantasy setting and certain elements of its art style. While Fire Emblem and Persona have always had some overlap in tone and design, Metaphor seems to blend the two in a way that feels both familiar and refreshing. Visually, the game shares a lot with Persona, with its bold, stylish character designs and vivid environments, but there's also something distinctly Ghibli-esque about it, especially in its cinematics. The Gauntlet Runner in particular instantly reminded me of Howl's Moving Castle, evoking a similar sense of whimsical wonder combined with fantastical machinery. There's a certain magic in how Metaphor captures this aesthetic, making the world feel vibrant and alive. Oh, and did I mention that this also kind of reminds me of Majora's Mask? The world of Metaphor is massive and full of life, offering that classic Atlas sense of scale and immersion. The title Metaphor ReFantazio might sound mystical and intriguing at first glance, but it's also surprisingly direct. As the name suggests, it's a metaphorical fantasy that plays with the idea of a fantasy world as a reflection of our own. The game's universe is built around this concept, where characters view our modern real world as a utopia, an idealized place they dream of living in, just as we often fantasize about escaping to their magical realm. This mutual longing forms the foundation of the game's overarching narrative, a narrative that will immediately catch your attention right away. The king is murdered. The assassination is done by none other than Louise Guilloburn, a royal officer of the Clamar tribe, and with the kingdom of Euchronia now on the brink of ruin, the protagonist, a member of the Elda tribe, a tribe often faced with discrimination, is sent off to search for a way to save his friend, the prince, from his curse that put him into a coma. But the protagonist cannot do this alone. He gathers support from new allies he meets along the way, such as a little fairy named Gallica, Leon Stroll of the Clamar, and Island Hulkenberg of the Rosante tribe, as he participates in the election, half committing to this Game of Thrones. Also, forgot to mention that the protagonist has heterochromia, which I feel like we don't see a whole lot, so that's cool. One of the recurring themes is the idea of idealization and how both sides, our world and theirs, romanticize what they don't have. The citizens of this fantasy world see our mundane reality as a paradise, while we, the players, often escape into these fantastical realms to find adventure and meaning. The characters wrestle with their own desires, burdens, and beliefs about what is right and wrong, and the game invites players to reflect on their own understanding of what makes this world, or life, truly worth living. Like its predecessors, Metaphor takes its time to ease you into the experience. Atlas games are known for the slow burn, and here it's no different. I'm nearly 20 hours in, and I'm still getting tutorials for new mechanics, but I guess that's just part of the charm. The game layers complexity over time, making sure you're never overwhelmed, even as it steadily ramps up in depth. So far, this pacing works really well. It feels purposeful and measured, but I can see how it could test the patience of some players. And if you're someone who feels pressed for time, this game just simply isn't for you. While the pacing is deliberate, it's worth noting how each new gameplay element introduces something meaningful. Whether it's the progression systems or the combat mechanics, everything feels connected to the overarching fantasy world Metaphor builds around you. However, maybe it's just a matter of timing, but while I'm definitely enjoying Metaphor ReFantazio, I haven't found myself quite as consumed by it as I was with Persona 3 Reload earlier this year. It's not that this game isn't captivating, it certainly is, but I think there's a chance I've hit a bit of a fatigue with this style of game. These massive, narrative-heavy RPGs with long, intricate mechanics and expansive worlds can be a lot to take in, especially when they follow one another so closely. Though it could also be a matter of tone. Persona had a much more relaxed and often playful vibe that I could easily get lost in, and the music plays a huge role in shaping that experience. The jazzy, upbeat tracks of Persona can make even the most mundane moments feel full of energy, giving the player a sense of rhythm and momentum that keeps you invested even when the game slows down. By contrast, Metaphor ReFantazio opts for a more somber, fantastical tone. It's a tonal shift that has its pros and cons. The more serious atmosphere suits the game's deeper themes and high-stakes narrative, but I can see how it might affect the player's mood differently. Whereas Persona feels more like a roller coaster of highs and lows, Metaphor lingers in the weight of the world, which could explain why I feel a bit more emotionally distant from it. It's not a flaw per se, just a difference in vibe that's worth noting. For some, this tone may be exactly what you're looking for, but if you're coming from something as spunky and rhythmic as Persona, it's a noticeable shift in energy that may take some adjustment. Combat in Metaphor is another area where the game stands out, while still drawing heavily from the Persona template. At its core, it's turn-based, and that sense of tactical, thoughtful combat remains intact. The enemy designs are particularly interesting as they aren't all made to look like supernatural beings. Instead, you face off against other enemies that are from the main races living in this world. Though the supernatural creatures, the monsters, are what they call humans. See? Told you it was meta. There's a strategic element in how you manage your party's abilities, weaknesses, and strengths, which feels familiar but satisfying. There's a sense of fluidity and depth in battles. So far, it hasn't felt overwhelming, but I can see how the growing number of mechanics might require some serious investment from you. However, the more you engage with the systems, the more rewarding they become, encouraging you to experiment with different strategies. It gives the combat an evolving dynamic quality that keeps it from getting stale. One thing that Metaphor does exceptionally well is its character development, which feels rich and layered. Like Persona, the relationships between party members are central to the experience, and the fantasy setting gives these dynamics a different tone. Rather than focusing on modern school-life connections, Metaphor explores the themes of destiny, power struggles, and the burdens of leadership. Each character I've met so far has been compelling, with their own personal struggles tied to the narrative. The interactions between the characters feel all natural and well-written, making you invest in them very heavily. The dialogue is sharp, occasionally funny, but always heartfelt. There's an emotional weight to each exchange that deepens the longer that you play. Much like Persona, building relationships is crucial, and it's exciting to see how these relationships might influence the story and gameplay further down the line. A significant part of Metaphor ReFantazio's appeal comes from its engaging character dynamic, particularly through the bond system. Two standout characters in this regard are Hulkenberg and Stroll, whose interactions with each other and the protagonist provide a strong emotional core to the party. Stroll is the son of a noble family that fell during a human attack, leaving him with a deep sense of pride and responsibility towards his parents' legacy. Despite his tragic background, Stroll remains unwavering in his pursuit of justice. He is driven by a strong moral compass, always willing to risk his life for what he believes is right. While he's focused on his duty, Stroll comes across as more approachable than some other party members. He's not carefree, but there's a warmth to him, like a best friend that you can lean on in tough times. His connection to the protagonist feels natural, and his presence is reassuring, giving off the vibe of someone who has your back no matter what, just as you have his back no matter what. Hulkenberg, on the other hand, is a highly disciplined military commander. She's a mentor to the protagonist, drawing from her wealth of experience to guide the party through battles and challenges. Hulkenberg has a more serious, methodical approach to life, one that stems from her strict training and the weight of the decisions she had to make as a leader. However, despite her tough exterior, she's not cold. Hulkenberg's care for her companions is evident, even if it shows in quieter, more restrained ways. Like Stroll, she has experienced loss, and her dedication to duty and responsibility mirrors his sense of justice. Among the characters that stand out in Metaphor ReFantazio, one of the most intriguing is your fairy companion and guide, Gallica, who remains by your side throughout the duration of your journey. You can call on her whenever you're unsure about what to do next. She can provide hints or remind you of your current objectives. But beyond that, her personality and her relationship to the main protagonist will likely make her an instant favorite for most players. Her charm, combined with a sense of comfort she provides, ensures that she is one of the most emotionally engaging characters in the story. What makes these interactions stand out is how Metaphor ReFantazio handles relationships. It's a significant difference that might catch fans off guard and potentially disappoint some. It's the absence of romance options. I'll admit I enjoy a good romance in RPGs every now and again. It adds a layer of complexity to the character dynamic, giving you another reason to invest emotionally into the story. Romances can deepen the bonds with party members and provide a personal connection that elevates the experience. That said, Metaphor chooses to forgo this, and honestly, I think it's a decision that's for the better. It proves that you don't need romance to craft deep, meaningful connections. The party members' friendships, rivalries, and shared experiences are enough to drive the narrative and offer emotional weight. In a way, it's nice to take a break from the expectation of romance and focus on the platonic bonds that can be just as impactful, if not more so. It's a different kind of investment that shifts the focus from a romantic tension to the broader dynamics of trust, camaraderie, and personal growth. It's a nice change of pace, and it adds a layer of maturity to the storytelling. The party in Metaphor is smaller than what you might be used to from other RPGs, especially those with sprawling casts like Persona. But this smaller roster has its benefits. With fewer characters to juggle, this game gives each of them more screen time, allowing you to really connect with them in ways that feel meaningful and genuine. I've always believed that large casts can still be fleshed out effectively. Persona and Fire Emblem and many other games prove this time and time again, but there's something to be said for the intimacy that comes with a more focused party. You get to see the depth of these few characters, their struggles, and their development, which makes your relationships with them feel more personal. Archetypes function like traditional RPG classes, each offering a unique set of skills, abilities, and stat focuses for a character. However, unlike fixed classes, Metaphor ReFantazio allows a lot more flexibility in how you customize and grow your characters through their archetypes. Each character begins with a base archetype that reflects their personality, background, and initial combat role. This system feels similar to Persona fusions, but it stands out by providing more in-depth customization. Archetypes are broken down into categories like defensive, offensive, support, and tactical, and characters can shift between these categories as you level them up and unlock new archetypes. For instance, Hulkenberg's starting archetype, the Knight, might be tactical with a focus on leadership buffs and defensive maneuvers, but as you develop her further, you might choose to transition her into a more offensive archetype, turning her into a heavy-hitting powerhouse who can lead the charge in combat. Likewise, Stroll can evolve his initial combat-focused archetype, Warrior, into something that blends damage with support abilities, allowing him to become more versatile on the battlefield. Interestingly, the archetype system also feeds into the game's social mechanics. These interactions often unlock new archetype possibilities or upgrades, further tying character development to both narrative and gameplay. For example, fostering a deep bond with Stroll through the game's bond system may reveal aspects of his character that you didn't initially see, unlocking new archetypes that reflect his growth as a person. To learn new archetypes, you can visit a special room called Academia, where the enigmatic Moor resides. This space functions similarly to the Velvet Room in Persona, where you could fuse your personas by talking to Igor. At Academia, you're able to transfer certain skills from one archetype to another by spending mag points, allowing for further customization and flexibility in your party's abilities. While visiting Academia, you might also notice a cat lounging around. This cat isn't just there for decoration, he plays an important role during your dungeon crawls. You'll find an apparition of him inside dungeons where he allows you to do things like save your progress or teleport back to the entrance whenever you feel like your party is nearing exhaustion. A notable challenge early in Metaphor ReFantazio is managing your MP. You'll likely find yourself running out of it quickly, especially if you're relying heavily on magic attacks to clear dungeons, which you kind of need to do. This makes grinding for levels or exploring longer dungeons much harder at first, as you might not have enough resources to sustain yourself through extended fights. However, this is where understanding and utilizing the archetype system becomes crucial. Switching between archetypes can save you a lot of trouble, particularly when it comes to managing MP. If you're facing MP shortages, one of the most beneficial archetypes is the Mage. The Mage archetype offers not only a powerful offensive magic, but also more efficient MP use and access to skills that restore MP or reduce the cost of spells. It's one of those things I wish I'd paid attention to earlier in the game. Having a character specialized in the Mage archetype can provide a much needed balance, especially when you're venturing into tougher dungeons or facing drawn out boss battles. By switching to this archetype at the right time, you can avoid the frustration of running out of MP mid-dungeon, allowing for smoother progression and better resource management. Understanding how to mix and match your archetypes to suit different situations is key to success, and mastering this flexibility can make even the most challenging sections of the game more manageable. Though, if you were like me and you didn't realize this earlier on, don't fret too much, because you'll actually get the chance to raise your HP and your MP by doing certain tasks on the Gauntlet Runner. The only downside here is that, like everything else, doing pretty much any task or chore is going to consume your in-game time. So, I mentioned learning this sooner because Metaphor ReFantazio also features an active calendar system, much like in Persona. You're required to carefully choose how you spend your days, balancing tasks, exploring dungeons, and managing relationships within the game's limited time frame. Many quests and tasks have strict deadlines, so managing your time becomes just as important as mastering combat. One of the key activities is boosting your royal virtues, which help unlock various things like extra dungeons or special dialogue options that open up new requests. Focusing on these virtues early on can significantly enhance your gameplay, providing more options to approach quests and improve your relationships with other characters. Failing to manage these aspects effectively can lead to missed opportunities, which adds a strategic layer to how you approach each day. Even at this early stage, Metaphor ReFantazio has the potential to become one of my favorite games of the year. It's been a strong contender already, and while Persona 3 Reload has been on my radar as likely my game of the year, Metaphor might just dethrone it if it continues on this trajectory. Granted, with games as long and as intricate as this, there's always a chance that things could go off the rails towards the end. But so far, it's been an incredibly strong experience. It's rare for a game to leave such an impression early on, especially in a year packed with standout titles, but Metaphor is doing just that.